Yesterday, and we were done with concept of object-oriented programming, and we started with creating objects. Then we started with static and non-static. Still, you guys might have questions in your mind, so we would be covering these things a bit again. Okay, not in a deep way, but yes, we would be discussing these things again. Okay, and here the next thing that we would be doing is we would be starting with interfaces today, and then we would be moving back to Selenium, right? But first, one thing, that is dynamic browsers, right? So first of all, let us just discuss about that. And what we have to do in the first go is we need to open a new project. So Java project, and I'll name this as day 3. And we need the Selenium dash to be added. Now there is another way as well, that is by clicking on the next button. Then over here, you can go to this libraries tab, then click on this add external jars. Here you can add all the jars that you want, right? Now here there is one jar missing, that is the main jar of Selenium. So we need to go back to this directory and add this jar. This is the main jar. You can add the sources jar as well. That is not an issue. So I'm adding these jars as well. I'll click on finish now, and this is done. Okay, I made a spelling mistake over here. Let me just rectify it. So Alt Shift R is the shortcut key to rename. Okay, so say day 3, right? And yeah, it has been updated, right? Now, first of all, we don't need this day to be open, day 2 to be open, right? So we can close it. But right now we have some things that we need to copy, so I'm not closing it. Now, the first thing is we need to create a new class, right? And I'll name this as dynamic browsers, right? So here, what we have to do is we just need to have the main method first. Then we need to do something. We need to have a variable initialized, so string, say browser name equals to, let us just have the name as Mozilla, right? So we have this Mozilla right now, right? Now what we would be doing is we would be checking whether what is the browser name in this say variable, right? So that we can go dynamically. Right now we are providing the hard-coded data, but this data might be coming from anywhere, right? So here what we would be doing is we would be having a if condition. So if, now the condition is this, that is browser name dot equals to. Now whenever you are comparing something in Java, you cannot use equals to sign. Now you need to make use of string functions to compare data actually. So it is just about the strings, not about the normal say integer data or the say double type data or float type data. This is just about the strings that you need to compare these in this way. So compare browser name dot equals. You can specify if it is Chrome, right? So if it is Chrome, then what needs to be done? Here we have specified some data. So let us just copy paste this. So this is for Chrome, right? And what I'll do, I'll just go back in this particular class and I'll paste this, right? I'll uncomment it. So this is done. Control Shift O is the shortcut key to import all the things that you need, right? So I've done this. Now I can get a page as well. So we have this page requested over here. I'll just do the same thing and say this thing, right? Now, what if the browser is not Chrome? What if the browser is Mozilla? Then, so else if block, and the condition is this, that is browser name dot equals to, right? Now what it is equal to? So it should be equal to the browser name, that is say Internet Explorer, right? So we need to have the code regarding that this Internet Explorer. Right now I'm not having anything inside it. We'll be adding it later on. Then else if again, and this time browser name dot equals, and say the last browser that we have in our list, that is Mozilla, right? So this is done. Now over here we need to have the code for Mozilla as well, right? So I'll just copy these 3 lines and I'll paste them over there. And here we have these lines, right? Now the thing is, when it comes to Internet Explorer driver, right? So what needs to be done? First of all, let us just specify this browser to be Internet Explorer and let's see what issue it causes us, right? Whether it should work directly or there are some issues. Let us just see that, right? So for Internet Explorer, the method that you need to use, the class that you need to use is this, that is Internet Explorer driver. And here, this is the thing, Internet Explorer driver equals to new Internet Explorer driver, right? This part is done. Now you can request this particular page, that is this, right? Now if I execute this code, what would happen, right? So if I execute this, let us just see that, and this needs to be executed with Java application. So this is done, and here again it is just throwing in an exception which we have seen already. So it needs the WebDriver to be initialized for Internet Explorer. So one more line to be added. Let us just quickly add that line, and here I'll just copy paste the things and I'll be making a little bit changes. So first thing is this, that is webdriver.ie.driver. This is the identifier for Internet Explorer driver, right? Now the next thing, you need to provide the path. So from where you'll get this executable. Now this executable is provided by Selenium itself. So you can go to this official website of Selenium dev, right? They recently changed the website. The last one was seleniumhq.org. Okay, so you can go to this download section. And here you can see that there is an option for the Internet Explorer driver server. You can download it directly. I'm using 64-bit versions of Windows, so I can download this particular file, right? It would take a little bit time for the download. Once it is done, we can start working with it, right? So over here now we have the file, right? We can start working with it, and I'll extract it in the same location where I've extracted the other files. So that is A drive batches, then here Selenium, then WebDriver, and this is the file, right? Now what needs to be done is I just need to provide this file name as well in the code, right? So going back to the code, this is the file that needs to be accessed, and we are done, right? Now let us just try executing it. But before opening the Internet Explorer browser, you need to make sure few things. So Internet Explorer, right? And here you need to do few things. That is, let us just see that. So over here, go to this options, right? Then Internet Explorer, Internet options. Why it is not showing me this thing? Just a moment. Okay, it is not showing me that part. So let us just do one thing. See, if it doesn't show, that is not an issue as well. So just look for Internet options here, right? In the start menu. So I've got to this particular part. Now in the security tab, what you have to do is that you just need to disable the protected mode, okay, and set the security to low, okay. And here internet medium, local internet, it is custom, trust sites low, restricted sites it should always stay at high, so we cannot change it, but yes, for internet we can keep it as medium, right? Now over here click on OK, and you can start working with it now, right? So there are few things that you need to make sure before working with Internet Explorer. Now if I run this, like Control F11 is a shortcut key, and again it is causing me trouble. Let us just see that whether I made a mistake. Yes, I made a mistake. So did you guys notice this mistake? I had to specify this here, not in the older location, right? So Control F11 and we are good to go. And here Now you can see that the browser would be opening. It would take a little bit time to open, and you can see that it is opening qtpselenium.com, right? This means that we are able to interact with Internet Explorer as well. Now, right now we are opening one page. Let us just do one thing. Let us specify more pages as well, right? For example, I'll be adding few stuff. So driver dot get, and say the URL is this, that is https www dot say zoho.com, right? And apart from that, after opening zoho.com, we can open some other page as well. So say driver dot get, and again we need to provide the fully qualified URL. So say http www dot facebook.com, right? There are multiple steps involved, right? I'm just adding up some steps. So say the last step, that is driver.get and Amazon. Say this, that is https www dot amazon dot in, right? So this is done. All the URLs are done and we are done with it. What I'll do, I'll just copy paste these everywhere, right? So that every browser should perform the same actions, right? Now this is our dynamic browsers, and let us just go with the Internet Explorer first, then we'll check for one other browser, then we'll move on, right? So over here you can see that the browser is opening. Once QTP Selenium is loaded, you can see that the browser is taking us to zoho.com. Once this page load is complete, it would be taking us to facebook.com, and in the end it would be taking us to amazon.in, right? And you can see that it is taking us to this particular page. So everything is working absolutely fine, right? First browser, we can cross check another browser. So I'll go with Chrome browser, right? So control F11, I've just changed the browser name here, right, in the variable, and the corresponding browser would be opened now, right? I don't want to waste time for waiting the websites to be open. So let us just move forward now, right? And here what we would be doing next is we would be doing something, that is say we would be learning about few things. That is, if you notice something, we are having a repeated lines of code. These 4 lines are repeated, and right now we have 3 browsers. What if we have 4 browsers? So these lines would be repeated again, right? The actions are same. Now what needs to be done over here? Whether we have something to do with it, right? So there are few things that you can do. Let us just see that what things we can do and how we can implement those things, right? So over here, what we would be doing is, first of all, we'll create a new class, right? And I'll name this as test phone, right? Now test phone is created, but still we need few more things. Now let me introduce a concept of interface. Okay, so what is the interface and how we can use it? Let us just declare an interface first. For example, I'm having an interface smartphone, or you can say that just a phone, right? So we have a interface phone. Now this interface has specified few things. For example, I will be specifying few variables over here, or you can say that some methods over here. So say public void say call, right? Now every phone has a method, say call, right? We can make calls through phone. What is the benefit of a phone when it is not allowing us to call, right? So public void call. Now in the same way, we would be having other features as well. Now every phone should have a feature known as say SMS. So public void SMS, right? Now over here, what can be done with it? First of all, let us just see that in a diagram, then we'll move on. Now consider there is an interface, okay, or you can say that there are some say brands. For example, this is the first brand, and this is the another brand, and this is the third brand. all these companies are making phones, right? Now they're adding up their features as well. Now suppose this phone has a feature calling, right? They called it, say something else and say FaceTime, right? And the third company came up, they called it Duo, right? Now the thing is that ultimately the goal is same, but the things are different, right? The implementations are different and the way of achieving those things are different, right? Now over here we have SMS, right? And here suppose we are having some features, say iMessage and say normal messages, right? Now over here there are some phone specific features, so these are not interoperable, but there are few things that are same. For example, phone, phone and phone. But can we do something so that every company should implement those basic required things every time whenever they're making a phone, right? Say this brand can miss something, this brand can miss out something, this brand can miss out something, but whatever there is in the basic necessities, those things should not be missed. For example, I can do something, I can specify a interface, okay, which would tell what things, say the basic features, say call, SMS and say something else as well. So let us just consider these two things as the basics. So call and SMS should be implemented by each and every implementing brand. So say call should be there, right? Then SMS should be there. Then again call should be here. SMS should be here and call should be here and SMS should be here. Thing is that they can have their own ways, but a phone which is using this particular say this brand can communicate with this brand and this brand as well and vice versa, right? So what we can do, we can set up a say set of rules, we can set up some rules that should be implemented by each implementing class, right? For example, over here I've created an interface phone, right? Now over here I'll create two new classes. So say new class and I'll name this as Apple phone, right? Now this Apple phone should do something that every other class is doing, right? So what is that? So it should implement phone, right? After specifying this, you can see that there is a say error. There is a tooltip over here which is telling us that add unimplemented methods, right? So here we can do few things with this, right? Now what I'll do, I'll just specify some data. So say system.out.println and I can specify like this, that is calling through Apple phone, right? Now in the same way, I can specify something here as well. So SMS through Apple phone, right? This is something which is specific to Apple only. I specified something over here. I did not say, I just declared that there is a class. I did not describe it. I declared that there is a method named call, but I did not describe it over here. That needs to be say described by the implementing class. For example, Apple phone, right? Now in the same way, over here we can create another class. So say new class and I can name this as Google phone, right? And here I can click on finish and here again I would be doing something that is implements phone, right? Now here, the moment I did this, you can see that I need to add implemented methods, and here I need to implement all the methods that are not being implemented yet. So calling through Google phone and SMS through Google phone. We need to specify these things. So SMS through Google phone, right? Now the question that you guys have in your mind is, say, what is the benefit of doing this, right? What is the ultimate goal of doing this? Usually what we do in test phone is, say, let us just have a main method first. Now what we usually do is we initialize the class like this, that is Apple phone phone equals to new Apple phone, right? And we call in the methods. So say phone dot call and phone dot SMS, right? If I run this, it would print both of the things, right? And here you can see that calling through SMS, calling through Apple phone and SMS through Apple phone. In the same way, I can do something for the Google phone as well. So say Google phone G phone equals to new Google phone, and here the same thing, say G phone dot call and G phone dot SMS. This is same, right? But the results would be different. Now, what is the benefit of using an interface? Again, the same question. Now the thing is that we can do something with the help of an interface so that we don't have to go through like this. What I'll do, I'll just comment out this part and I'll declare the object reference with some other name. For example, like this, phone equals to new. Now we can create a new object, right? And what I did, just a moment. Yeah, new, and we have the option of Google phone or Apple phone. If I use Google phone, right, and I specify something like this, that is phone.call and phone.sms, right? Now if I run this code, you would notice something over here. It is printing calling through Google phone, SMS through Google phone, right? Now see the thing, I'm not specifying Google phone over here. I just specified phone, right? What if I change this Google phone to Apple phone, right? Now if I run this, what would happen? You can notice it over here. It is printing calling through Apple phone, right? I did not change the object reference. I just did something that allowed me to access this class, say classes methods, right? The objects method. Now what is that thing? So phone interface specified some set of rules, that is call should be there and SMS should be there, right? Now the implementing classes Google and Apple phone had these methods. So if I create object reference of phone, okay, and allocate, say create a new object of the implementing class, then I can call in these methods. For example, let us just create a new say class, and that is say BlackBerry phone. This brand is kind of obsolete now, but yes, at some point of time, people used it like anything, right? So again, it implements phone, right? And here, what we would be doing is we would be having those methods. So we need to add unimplemented methods from here. And now the thing. So we can print out the data system.out.println and say we can print calling through a BlackBerry phone, right? And in the same way, SMS through a BlackBerry phone. So system.out.println and SMS through a BlackBerry phone, right? Now, if I do this and if I make the same change over here in this, So instead of Apple phone, I make use of BlackBerry phone. Now if I run this, you can notice that it is doing the same thing, right? It is printing the same data which is specified in BlackBerry phone, right? This means that I can play around with the classes, right? And I can just create the object reference of the, say, interface rather than creating the object reference of the class, right? Now here, the benefit is that right now I did this thing. What I'll do, I'll just specify this thing now. Okay, say after this. Now here, what is the difference? What would happen? Let us just see that. So I initialized phone, which was BlackBerry earlier. Then here we made use of this phone.call method and phone.sms method. So at first it printed calling through a BlackBerry phone, SMS through a BlackBerry phone. Then I changed the object. This time I called in call and SMS from Apple phone. This is okay. Now what if Apple has some of its own methods as well? For example, there is a method in Apple phone, right? And that method name is, say, public void, and I'll name that method as, say, iMaps, right? Now system.out.println, I can print something like this, that is iMaps in Apple phone, right? So if I do this, can I be able to say, would I be able to call this method from test phone? Let us just see that. So say phone dot iMaps, right? So if I specify this, you can notice it over here that there is an issue. The thing is that create method iMaps in the type phone. We did not have any kind of method named as maps in phone. The class is, the object is from Apple phone, right? But still the interface phone is not having that method. So we cannot call that. Now to call that method, we just need to have the object initialized by the class object reference itself. So if I comment out this part, and here if I uncomment this part now, if I run this, you will notice that there is no issue. Okay, so we can continue, and there is an issue actually. I forgot to specify a semicolon, and we can execute it now. Now you can notice it over here, iMaps in Apple phone, right? So it is printing the correct data, but it is not allowing us to make use of this data over here in the object reference by the, say, interface, right? You can notice it over here again. I'll uncomment this part, and you can notice it over here. iMaps is causing some trouble. Let me just comment out this part as well. So as it is not available, we need to either remove it or work with it, or we need to create a new method in phone, right? Now over here, this part is done. Now let us just go to the Java docs of Selenium, right? So here, these are the API docs. Let us just go there and see what we can do with it, right? Now over here, if you notice something, and if I scroll down, right, I'm making use of this Chrome browser, right? Chrome driver here. It would be somewhere over here. GHIGKL. So Chrome driver, right? Now if you go to this class, if you notice something, it is implementing something, right? So what it is implementing, right? So it is implementing WebDriver. How? So let us just see that. And here, for this, what we need to do, we need to get to something known as WebDriver interface. Now, whenever there is an interface in Java doc, you can notice that the name is in italics. So this is the interface, right? Now over here, this is the interface WebDriver, and the implementing classes are this, that is Chrome driver, Edge driver, event firing WebDriver, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, Opera driver, remote WebDriver, and Safari WebDriver. Right? So you guys are already aware of Chrome driver and Firefox driver and Internet Explorer driver. Other drivers are for the implementing classes. For example, say this one is for Edge browser. This is specifically for say for creating some kind of say special actions which a browser cannot perform, right? Then Firefox driver you already know, Internet Explorer driver you already know. Opera is for Opera browser, which is a bit unstable. That is why we are not using it. Remote WebDriver is for the say the network execution. We'll get to this as well. We will be making use of this as well. And Safari driver, this is only for the Macintosh machines, right? Now over here, what we are going to do next is we would be making use of this WebDriver interface in our code, right? So how? Let us just see that. Now earlier dynamic browsers had this much lines of code, right? Can we decrease these lines of code with the same number of data specified already, right? So the question, the answer to this question is yes. Right now, see, we are having four things, like, four actions performed. We may have multiple actions involved as well. So right now it is okay. But whenever there are, say, 500 lines of code for each browser, then we would be having a lot of issues because three different options, so the code is multiplied by 3. Now that is not something which we can bear, right? Now we need to do something. So over here, instead of going like this, we would be doing something here. So say I'll create a new class and say I'll name this as dynamic browser open. Okay, so dynamic browser opening, right? Here we'll copy paste the code first, but I'll be making some changes here as well. So in the dynamic browsers.java, I'll just copy everything out. Okay, inside this I have this part, so I'll just copy paste this main method and we are done, right? Now what I would be changing, first of all, I'll specify something like this, WebDriver driver, simply this, nothing else. Next, whenever we are initializing the driver, okay, we need to do something over here. Driver equals to new Chrome driver, driver equals to new Internet Explorer driver, and driver equals to new Firefox driver, right? Now this means that we can have these lines of code added over here instead of here, right? So I'll remove these and done, right? Now it is causing some kind of trouble. So we need to initialize the variable. Equals to null is okay, right? Ultimately the WebDriver is getting initialized, otherwise we won't be able to execute anything, right? Now the thing is that we're done with this, and if you notice something, the total number of lines of code is 26 lines of code. Earlier, how many lines of code we had? Let us just see that. For the same thing, in the dynamic browsers, we had 32 lines of code. So there are few lines which have decreased, right? There are few things which have decreased. So over here, this would benefit us in a say long term. How? The thing is that we can make use of these things and we can perform the actions directly. We need not to say specify the data inside this if and else if, right? So Control Shift F so that I can reformat my code, right? And here I can execute this. So the browser name is Chrome. This time Chrome browser would be opening. So Control F11, and this is a JavaScript. Click on OK, and this is done, right? And here you can see that the browser is opening. It would be performing all the steps that it used to do earlier as well, right? So zoho.com, then facebook.com, and then in the end, say amazon.in, right? So we are able to perform these things. Now, what is the benefit, right? The benefit is that we are saving a lot number of lines of code now, right? Now, one more thing, that is, if we notice something and specifying this line every time before initializing the browser, can we do something so that we don't have to initialize this line again and again, right? So yes, we can do few things. Let us just see that what can be done. Now, I'll comment out these lines everywhere. Okay. This means that these lines won't be executed in the execution plan, right? Now, what can be done actually? So let us just see that. Now we have the things inside over here in this folder, right? Now we can do something in environment variables. So simply open start menu and type in environment variables. Now over here, go to this environment variables and edit the system variables. Do not edit the user variables for your username. Okay. So here, go to this path variable and add the path that you have copied. So new and hit Control V and you're done. Now you might not be able to see this kind of information. You might be able to see some different kind of information. For example, this way, just a moment. This way, no need to worry. Go to the end, then add a semicolon, Control V, backslash, semicolon, and you're done. Click on OK and click on OK. You're done completely. Now over here, when I execute this, you can see that I've commented out these three lines here, right? Now if I execute this code, Control F11, you can notice that right now it is not picking up the driver. Now what needs to be done next? So in this case, you can simply restart your Eclipse instance, right? So you can go here and you can click on restart. It would simply exit the Eclipse instance and it would reopen it, right? So yes, we need to perform this action. Sometimes it works, but in 99.99% cases, it doesn't work. So you need to restart your Eclipse instance, right? Now over here, it would take a little bit time for the Eclipse to open. So we have to wait for that time and then we can move forward, right? So over here, it is still taking a lot of time. And we need to wait for it to be completed. So you can see that over here now, if I execute this code, right, Control F11, and if we execute this code, you would notice that everything is working absolutely fine, right? So over here, okay, again it is not executing. Deferred. Okay, it is still opening. We need to wait for this time actually. And system is got a slow now. And okay, so if you face this kind of issue, no need to worry about that. The thing is that you need to restart your browser the way I need to restart my browser. Okay, sorry, restart my system, not the browser, the system. You need to restart your whole machine if this kind of issue comes up. There is no other problem. You can verify this over here as well, right? So this is the WebDriver directory. Copy this path and here environment variables, and here environment variables, go to the path variable, and here you can find it in the end, APACHE Selenium WebDriver, right? So this is the exact path where our files are there, but again it is not loading up because of the the executables are not being accessible right now, right? So all you have to do is you need to restart the machine and you're good to go. Now the next thing, coming back to the code, if you notice something, if I do something like this, say if I highlight the code over here, if I move my cursor over to the code, you can see that it is not suggesting me anything. Now, what if you want to see the code suggestions? You can do something. What you need to do, simply copy this particular path. You can notice it over here. This is the path of Java doc. Simply copy this path, okay, and here go to the jar file. So right click, properties, then Java build path, then libraries, then client combined this .jar, then Java doc location, click on edit and provide this path, but remove this index.html. Okay, click on validate. Once it is showing that location is likely valid and index have been found, click on OK and click on OK and click on apply and close. Once you're done with it, you would notice something over here. It has started to show you things regarding the code. Firefox driver, public Firefox driver. Internet Explorer driver, it would start giving you suggestions regarding this. So public Internet Explorer driver. In the same way, Chrome driver, right? So it is giving us some information regarding Chrome driver, right? Now over here, we have the driver.get as well. So it is giving us say information regarding this get method as well. So load a new web page in the current browser window, right? This is done using an HTTP GET operation, right? And you can see that this is the information which is being provided to us, right? You can have access to this information. Now, what is the benefit? Suppose while writing your code, you forget something. Now you can get the hints from here, right? While say writing the code, you can get the hints from here and you can see that what is the thing you're doing. For example, this get method, right? So this get method opens the web page with the HTTP get method, right? And it allows you to open that particular web page, right? Now over here, there can be other things as well. For example, this WebDriver, and you can see that this is the information regarding WebDriver interface, right? Now here you can see this information, right? Now this is done, and coming back to the syllabus. So we are done with interfaces, need of an interface, concept of an interface, use of interfaces in Selenium. We are done with the WebDriver interface, right? Drivers in Selenium. And now the next thing is exception handling that we would be doing in the next lecture. Okay. So in the next lecture, apart from this, what else we would be doing? The main thing that we would be dealing with, how the Selenium works on the page. For example, this is the web page. So how it would be working on it, right? How it how it is able to interact with the web pages in the browser, right? So we will be learning about those things in the next lecture, and we would be working with exception handling as well, right? Or let us just we have 10 minutes, we can cover it, right? So let us just cover it right now. So exception handling. Now what is exception handling and how would we be able to do that? For this, what we need to do is we need to create a new class, and I'll create a new class and I'll name this particular class as say exceptions in Java, right? So I have this name. Now over here in the main method, right? Say suppose I do something. For example, I have a integer a equals to 10, integer b equals to 0, and integer c equals to a divided by b, right? This code is okay. Now we can print c. So say c. Now if I execute this code, control F11, you can notice that this won't be executing. Instead, it would giving me exception in the main thread, this divide by 0. right? Now, what if you don't want the code to stop executing? For example, I'm printing A and say B, right? Now over here, what can be done with C, right? Or we can simply do something here, system.out.println A divided by B, right? Control F11, you can notice it over here. Again, it is causing us trouble in the line number 6. Now, to handle such kind of situation, what if you don't want to stop the execution of the code? So to handle such kind of situation, we have something known as try catch block. Just simply put the code inside the try part which you want to try, and it would try to execute that code block. Now if you notice something over here, 10 and 0 are getting printed. I printed those things over here, right? I was trying to print system this A divided B as well, which was 10 divided by 0, but it couldn't. So it threw an exception, but it didn't show that. Now exception is caught and it has been kept over here. Now we can print this exception whenever we want to. For example, say I can print it over here, system.out.println E, right? If I run this now, you can see that java.lang.arithmetic exception divide by 0. Then it is printing 10 and then 0, right? What if I do something else? Say e.print, right? We have a lot of things we can do. Say we can get the localized message, we can get the message, we can get the hash code, we can get converted to a string as well, right? Apart from that, we have another method as well, that is e.print stack trace. It would print the whole stack trace directly. We don't need to make use of that method, that is say system.out.println, right? So we can handle the exception like this, right? It can be of any type, exception can be of any type. For example, in case of our dynamic browsers, I remove these lines of code, right? I'm completely removing these. Now the thing is that my browsers are not opening. Control F11, you can see that it is just giving me exception. That is, the driver should be having this particular thing. Now what I can do is I can simply specify something over here, say try catch, right? And move all these if things inside the try part, and catch should print e.print stack trace, right? Control F11 and you can see that there is another exception now, that is null pointer exception. But first the exception was illegal state exception. If I comment out this part, you can notice that the things are getting executed and there is only one exception, that is null pointer exception. Now why this null pointer exception comes up? This comes up whenever the object reference has been specified, but there is no object that has been created and allocated to that particular object reference, right? So you've got this. Now the thing is that the benefit of using try catch block is, suppose you have a piece of code, you just want to try that part, but if that part fails, you don't want the execution to be stopped. In that case, you can surround that code and say try catch block and you're good to go, right? This would help you in keeping the say test cases executed normally, right? It won't stop the execution of test case in some areas where there is a small mistake, but you can go with that mistake, right? Or there is some component that is having some kind of issues, but you can go with that those issues, right? So this was for today's lecture. If you have any queries, you can feel free to ask.